Let's now go to tax. And even in the end, the coalition caved in reluctantly and supported the government's changes to those stage 3 tax cuts. There's actually been little fight, if you think about it, to what was a genuine piece of tax reform to scrap the 37 cents in the dollar tax bracket. So who is fighting? Well, one is Brian Marlow, president of the Australian Taxpayers Alliance, who joins me now from Canberra. Many thanks for your time, Brian. Why fight? I mean, the coalition's going to basically back the government's bill. They're going to let it all go through. The politics, the numbers of politics basically ended up, sort of deciding all of this.
Well, someone has to be out there doing the good work of trying to advocate for proper tax cuts in this country. The original Stage 3 package was a good package. It was arguably one of the biggest sets of tax reform in the last 20 years. The Labor government decided to lie to voters at the last election and completely abandon these tax cuts. And their argument is oh, well, we'll give tax cuts to some Australians, and when it comes to the 37% tax bracket, we're not going to touch that because the economy's bad right now, we can't afford it. Well, we're calling their bluff. We're saying, OK, by your own estimates, you're saying the economy's going to bounce back in the next 12 months. We're giving you to 2026, commit to getting rid of that 37% rate. And our hope is that more people join our amendment strategy and push for this.
OK, so getting rid of the 37 cents in the dollar tax bracket, what it was designed to do by the coalition was to mean that anybody between $45,000 and $200,000 would be on the same tax bracket. So therefore, the incentive to work extra hours, to work an extra day or 2 days if you're a part-time worker, to get a second job, if you like, the incentive to work harder, to participate in the workplace was greater, to take pressure off families. That was the concept, at least anyway.
That's right. And the most important thing that people need to understand is that would have boosted productivity, which would offset any of the alleged costs of getting rid of that tax bracket. So it was a cost-neutral policy that absolutely should have been put through. The government said that they were going to do it. They lied to Australian voters. They took it away. They're saying now that the reason is they can't afford it. And our message is simple. OK, when the economy bounces back, get rid of it like you said you would.
OK, so then go and let's be honest about one other aspect of this, and that is that the whole taxation system long-term has been broken for a long time. It's not just about the taxation system. You've got to look at the transfer system as well, which is basically about welfare to families, If you basically wound all of this back and said, right, there's going to be no family welfare. All we're going to do in the future is do it through the tax system. That would be the real tax reform that this country needs. But there's no politician brave enough to even try that, I would think.
I have a strong feeling that there will be some people pushing for that in the not too distant future. We've advocated for that for a very long time. The tax system in Australia needs to be streamlined, and getting rid of the 37% bracket was one way to do that. We'll always advocate to reduce taxes and streamline the system because, as you say, it's the best way to actually give money back to people and give power back to people who can use that money to navigate through really tough economic times.
Because we did the stats only a couple of weeks ago when these changes were mooted, and it worked out that basically anybody earning under $55,000 doesn't pay any tax anyway. Because if they're a family with kids, they're actually getting more from the government than what they're putting in. That's fundamentally what the issue is with our system now, and yet you're now piling even more money into those people's hands.
That's right. And what's even worse is for other taxpayers, they're getting absolutely annihilated by inflation and bracket creep. Now, the Prime Minister was asked at National Press Club if he'd do anything to address bracket creep, and he said that they're focused on the here and now. So he basically fobbed that off. Just as one little statistic, if bracket creep is not adjusted for, and if we do not do anything about bracket creep, every single average income earner will be in the highest tax bracket before Labor even gets to their net zero policy. So something has to be done. This isn't about the big end of town or giving tax cuts to the rich. It's about having a streamlined, efficient tax policy in this country, something that hasn't been done in decades.
But you think that maybe there is somebody out there politically who's brave enough to try and take this on? Because I say, even when we've tried tax reform in the past, it's always fallen foul.
Yeah, well, we're going to keep pushing. We're putting all of our resources towards this because our entire organisation exists to give people a tax break, and we'll continue with that fight.
I'll tell you what, Brian Marlow, good to have you in the program today. We'll keep on staying with this because we think it's also worthwhile pursuing. It really does need to be addressed in Australia. There is no doubt if we are to go forward. Many thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Ross.